I had forged my birth certificate at the age of 16 and got a job in the mill working as a mason in the open hearth furnace. And the mill went on strike, and at that time the draft was in force, and I was sitting at Minor Dunn's on Fifth Avenue in Gary next to the old Tivoli Theater, and I was talking to a friend whose brother had been a pilot in the Marine Corps, and I just decided to go down and join the Marine Corps. The first thing, it was enlightening, you know. We got off the bus, and all of a sudden this guy starts talking real nasty to you. Okay, you guys line up, get around. And then the next thing was the haircut, you know, a butch, no hair, shaved, just like the guys do today. And it was very enlightening. You snapped to and started doing what you had to do. We landed at Incheon, and we were on an LST. From the personnel carrier, they put us into LSTs, and we started to go towards shore, and we went by the battleship Missouri that was firing into the Sewell, and it was what a beautiful sight to see the cannon fire, and then see the shell going overhead into Korea, and it was an astounding sight. I could choose my position. Would I want to be a rifleman, a BAR man? So I went with these guys from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and went into the machine gun squad. And when we arrived and Ron and I got into the foxhole, an officer came along and he says, I need one of you guys out on the flank to cover the flank. And Ron looked at me and I looked at him, and I had always been taught when my father said something, do it now, not when you get around to it. And I, you know, getting disciplined in the Marine Corps boot camp was no problem with me because it was a way of life. So I jumped up and he handed me a rifle, and I went to the flank, which was a pile of rocks. Then all of a sudden, I heard two voices there was about 12 of us, I think, spread out along this pile of rocks. And I heard voices on the other side, and they weren't American voices. And I became concerned because then I became afraid of a hand grenade or an explosive device that would, you know, really harm me. Not kill me, but probably harm me. So I looked at the two guys adjacent to me, and fortunately or unfortunately, I had picked the spot in the ravine where it narrowed down to the narrowest point. And I thought, well, somebody's got to do something. So I jumped up, and I had my M1 rifle, and it has 8 rounds. And I looked down, and there was 2 young Chinese soldiers. And I was practically next to them, and I pulled the trigger 8 times, moving it towards each of them, and they dropped down, I presume dead or wounded. So the first thing I did is I went to the foxhole where Ron was, and I observed he had been shot in the jaw or in the face. And his brother, in the meantime, had been a sick bay commando and had gone to sick bay for some reason. And he came back, and I had to tell him that his brother had been killed. So we loaded his body onto the truck, and that was the end. It was the best 3 years, 3.5 months of my life to help me form my life and my guide and direction in the world. It was the best thing. In fact, yesterday, Kathleen and I were stopped in Crown Point to have a bite to eat, And there was I was sitting there with my back to the service counter, and Kathleen says, "Oh, there's a Marine there." So I went up to him and said, "You know, the usual Marine BS." And we started talking, and there was a young gentleman with him who had on a shirt which I thought was a Navy shirt. And I was telling him about all the good times that I had, my good experience, and how it was the best thing in the world for me to start my life.